It is currently January 15th, 2025. My name is Bobby. The voice you're about to hear is Chase. Chase, say it. Say it, goddammit.
All right, I'll say it. Just, everybody who's watching the video live is like, well, he's obviously there. But for anybody who's listening to the podcast, they'll go, Bobby is just an idiot.
He's a fucking loser. No, Chase is as absent on this show as Nintendo is with the announcement. You all are suckers. You're not going to see the Switch 2 anytime this week, but you got two of us. So there you go.
I don't even need to see it this year. Hey, there's lots of Switch games that I can play. I don't need a Switch 2. What would I need a Switch 2 for?
Donkey Kong will be out there tomorrow for you, and you can play Donkey Kong.
I could. I've already played that game.
This is the Casual Hour. It is episode 407, and we're going to tell you about some video games, including Hyper Light Breaker, Bayonetta, and a couple Star Wars, and maybe even a little trip to the movie theater. But we, all joking aside, we were kind of on pins and needles this week because if you have been on the internet, a lot of the internet's pundits in the video game circles were saying Nintendo is going to tell you about that Switch 2, and they very well could because the rumored date was the 16th. However, it would be interesting and on brand for Nintendo to just drop a YouTube video tomorrow saying, this is the Switch 2, and that would be it. And I think that's what we're going to get.
It could be. See. I mean, we were considering pushing this back to, so we're recording on the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And so supposedly this announcement was happening tomorrow, but generally Nintendo seems to give you at least 24 hours notice to say, hey, motherfuckers, we've got something to talk about. Shut the fuck up and let us have our day. And then everybody gets the hell out of the way. But they didn't do that this time. And maybe it's because everybody knew that they were going to do it and they're pissy about it. I don't know. But
I wonder if this was the plan. And we didn't talk about it last week, but CES just wrapped up. And there was the unofficial and certainly not licensed by Nintendo dummy unit of what the Switch 2 will look like by manufacturer that we've both supported, Genki. They actually had a dummy that they brought out and was putting some of their products on it. And they've doubled down saying, hey, motherfuckers, we didn't sign any NDAs and you didn't give us these things, so we're good to go.
But I think they also said something like, we don't have I think they've confirmed we don't have official
100%.
Like, this is based on everything we know, but this is not like we don't have it.
So I just wonder if Nintendo was scheduled this week, but given the buzz and obviously legal discourse or online around this, they maybe changed plans because it would have been like, well, fuck it, leak, so here you go, rather than we've always had this planned. And I will tell you right now, I think there will be no diminishing returns on whenever they show that. I have in my lifetime, Chase, I mean, I don't know, maybe the 360. I have anticipation that the Nintendo Switch 2 might be one of the most like anticipated consoles I can recall in some time, if not ever in my lifetime.
Yeah. And I think that's why Nintendo is able to announce it whenever the hell they want, because they know that whatever 100%. Day they decide to put it out there, they own that day. They probably own that week.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, oh, well, we don't have to put it out today.
No, they are the rock star of, I mean, they are the reason we have Rockstar, in my opinion, but Rockstar doesn't have to go to anything. They don't give a fuck about Keighley. They don't give a fuck about any of these big summer events or games done fast, whatever you want to call it. They'll show up, they'll do their thing, and Nintendo's always done that.
It's not called games done fast, Bobby. That's a different thing.
That's what I do a lot. Anyway,
Bobby's starting his own rival charity speed run.
You've
games done fast.
This is Gum Dame Fast. Anyway, we are going to tell you about games. We're going to probably speculate a little bit about like what some of the rumors have said about the Switch. Chase, you recently watched something, a live concert of punk and ska music and West Coast 90s rock. Like,
that's true. Yes, I've been watching a little bit of AGDQ, Awesome Games Done Quick, not fast.
Awesome Games or Cool Games Done Fast. Look for that one coming from me.
I believe it. So I didn't watch. I like watching these. I just
Yeah,
generally think it's cool to one watch these super skilled people do like play
seriously.
games in a way that I will never play them. Will never be able to play them. But at the same time, I think there's also a really cool aspect of learning about some of your favorite games. And sometimes these people have played and broken down these games so thoroughly that you're able to learn something about how this game was built and how it
Absolutely.
wasn't built all that well in some cases, and why it's still fun and interesting. And then there's another kind of leg to it, and I think we saw a lot of that in this AGDQ. It's just there is a community around speedrunning, and you don't have to be a speedrunner to be a part of it. And I think just this community of people coming together can do some really cool things. Obviously, there's the charity aspect. They raised millions of dollars, which is awesome. But
Fantastic.
but also just the idea of, yeah, I don't know if you've noticed gestures broadly to the world, but gamers not the best people.
No, not always.
But it is great that a community like this is almost 100% just cool people
It's
being very inviting and welcoming to everyone, and just happy that everyone's around, and that's awesome.
yeah, man. It's a cool celebration for sure. And if you can stick around for a little bit of our episode tonight, we'll probably talk somewhat about that on the back half. But let's talk about some games. We're going to check in on one game in particular that I've been playing. I'll give a brief update on that right here, and that's Star Wars Outlaws. I mentioned last week during the break, I picked this one back up, and I've had a hard time wanting to play anything else, Chase. And I don't know if this is just like pure junk food for me at this point, and I've been able to just kind of keep my brain in a very like turned off state to play it. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because there's a lot of cool things to take in and experience in the game, but there's something that the lizard brain I possess loves about: if you get this, it will go there; if you do this, it'll go fast; if you do these, it gets better. And I really enjoy just like kind of fucking over the cartels and playing them for the like, who's gonna like let me kind of dictate how this goes. Yeah, you hired me to go and get this Crimson Dawn, but the Huts are actually going to give me a cool blaster part that I need and a little bit more cred with them. And that actually gets me into the back room I've been trying to get into for the last hour tonight. So I'm going to sacrifice our relationship and deal with the consequences that come from that for a bit, because I want to go over here and do it. That's fucking cool. Like, I feel like a smuggler. I feel like I am playing the galaxy and I am picking up quests from them that best suit my pursuits. And it truly feels not as altruistic as like what Star Wars makes you believe it is when you watch these shows. Like,
Yeah.
it's a dirty fucking scene there. Like Jabba's palace, not the best. And I will tell you there's some wink and nods, because this is taking place during a trilogy that you want nothing to do with at this point in time, but it's very subtle. Like, if you were between episodes Empire and Return of the Jedi and you were at Jabba's palace, you probably don't have to think too hard about what you might see while you're there.
Sure.
And so things like that are cool, but then there's moments where you're just kind of seeing terrains and elements of these planets that you've been hearing about since the 70s, but you have the speeder bike and you can go, and you might have some people that occupy, like the Imperials might be in an area taking over some pirate operation, and you could be none the wiser and sneak in and fruitfully take whatever is there while they hash it out. Like, it's an opportunistic version of Star Wars that I'm really just fucking vibing with in a cool way and having a
The
blast
way
with that.
you describe it here, it actually is reminding me a lot of Fallout New Vegas. In,
Yeah.
here's like a mission, you can do it in all sorts of different ways. You can start doing it one way and then swap over and start doing it another way. You can kind of just be in it for yourself. Like when you talked about like trying to get into the back room, like that feels like something I would have in New Vegas when I played that, of like, okay, I want to do this thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how I can accomplish that thing or get to this thing or acquire this thing. And here's like one thread that might get me there, and then yes, here's like a different, more advantageous way, and it's like, well, do I really care morally, like who I'm doing this for? I just want the thing in the end. And that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool to like give that a Star Wars veneer of, you're in the world, you're in the universe of Star Wars, and that can be pretty cool, even if you're gonna see a piece of Anakin's pod racer or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I was driving, like, I won't stay on it too much longer, but I was flying around on Tatooine, not really flying, I was on my speeder hovering around, and there's dynamic daytime stuff. And so it kind of got to be like this desert night ride, and you have a small headlight coming off the front of your speeder, and Nyx is hanging out on the back. And like in the distance, I just saw this ship take off, like way far. And it just like went and then kind of took off and was gone. And in the same moment, Nyx, your little critter that hangs out with you, will alert you to events and things of that. And you come across this like column out in the middle of the fucking desert of Tatooine, like a rocky formation. And you can see where there was a shipwreck. A ship got clipped on it. And it's like, I wonder what's up there. And like, there's a whole fucking thing about like pulling your speeder over, going up there, finding it. And then I was back on it to the area to like go into a Sarlacc pit and find a tooth to go and trade with some Jawas to get a part that I needed for my ship. And like that whole little fucking like moment and slice of life type thing was really fucking cool. And this is just me maybe trying to convince everybody, sometimes games need a bit more time, and that's okay. And I think that we are really quick as enthusiasts of games to be like, oh, that thing sucked, or like write off people working on it. And it's not perfect, it's far from it, but it's way closer to fun. And I think that's a thing I can get by with this game for sure.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I'm glad we're done talking about Star Wars. We don't have to mention Star Wars anymore on this podcast. So
no Star Wars, right?
You ready to hear about a new video game, Bobby?
Yeah. I mean, I think that we've got a few here. Like I went over Star Wars. That's pretty new.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about Star Wars Battlefront.
Oh, the dice joint.
No. I mean, I was about to say, the good one, but
Bobby. It doesn't hold up, does it?
So here's the thing. I'm playing Star Wars Battlefront as part of the Star Wars Battlefront collection that includes the first and second Star Wars Battlefronts. The first one came out in 2004. The dice one from 2015.
This is the newest one, right? You're playing the new version of it, correct?
Yes, I'm playing this on the Switch. Similarly to Star Wars Outlaws, when it came out, it was pretty busted. Especially apparently the online was really not there.
Good.
And now it's all patched and good, but nobody's playing it online, which is fine because I never played these games online and I didn't care. But I mentioned it last week, but I started a new series on Chase Koeneke Plays. Bobby helped me out with it. It's called Go Play a Star Wars. Bobby did some incredible art for it and helped with the name as well. But I wanted to go back and revisit some Star Wars games that I either liked or hadn't played enough of, or some other kind of middle ground. And this one is in that kind of weird middle ground because I love Star Wars Battlefront 2, one of my favorite games ever. I just had an absolute blast with that game, but I've only played the original Battlefront a couple of times at like a cousin's house or something like that.
Do you remember what you played it on when you played it?
I think it was a PlayStation.
Okay, it was Xbox for me.
Okay, yeah, I think it was a PS2. So I only remember a couple of levels, and I didn't play too much of it, but I just remember liking it enough when I played it at my cousin's place that when I was thinking of going out and getting it myself, the second game had already come out. So I was like, oh, I'll just buy the second game, and then ended up falling in love with the second game. So this is somewhat new to me because I'm going through the campaign of it, and I gotta say, I don't know if it just wasn't all that good when it first came out, or if it just has really not held up at all. Because it's boring.
Yeah.
It's boring.
So listen, man, let's kind of have this conversation for a quick second. We come from a period where I think it's probably not far off for us to really say like the 360 was kind of like a heyday thing for you and I. Less responsibilities in life, a lot of crazy shit. Like that was a big time. And so we glorify that period quite a bit at this point in our lives. I think we look back on it, and if I had to really like dotted line to where we're at today, that period of like how I became kind of into games really formed on my own at that. You were playing like, I think it's around the same time that you had the DS. I know that was a huge thing for you.
Sure.
All this to be said, man, there's been a few of these things that we've talked about with reverence on this show that then later on will get some sort of port or remaster or remake to a degree where we get excited because our nostalgia is just carrying us at this point in life. And when we play it, we quickly are reminded that, wow, games actually have gotten much better from a design and a narrative and just like balance and pacing when it comes to it. Because there was a point in the 360 when Xbox Live had become more of this niche thing and this the norm. Like everybody was on it using it. So the games didn't need to be narrative heavy. There was just everyone to play games together online because they could do it without having to be gone. I think this is one of those situations. I think Battlefront having all the narrative history
possible.
of, you know,
it's possible, but I also like there's a part of me, and as I've played, I think I've done two episodes so far. As I'm playing it, I'm feeling like it might just be that it hasn't been refined yet. Which when we get to Battlefront 2, which I'm hoping to play right after this, that maybe some of the problems that I'm having with Battlefront 2 or having with Battlefront 1 are fixed or at least better in Battlefront 2, because right now I'm having a couple of different problems. One of them is that I think the spawns are generally pretty bad, especially like when enemies spawn in on you as you're capturing one of their points, but they like jump in from their own point and then just shoot you in the back. That really sucks. The game just kind of feels rigid, especially like trying to go into first person and shooting, especially like scoped in first person. It just generally doesn't feel very good. The sniper is like a good character, but it's just it feels like garbage to play as that unit. So I'm like, there's some parts that I just don't feel are very refined in here, which I'm hoping, like my fingers firmly crossed, that Battlefront 2 was the good one, right? Battlefront 2 was the good one. Well, when we get to Battlefront 2, this will all be fixed.
That was the better one.
I'm hoping that's the case. Yeah,
I think you're going to be. I mean, it might not be the fucking coming that you need it to be. But
I'm sure it will still feel pretty limited, but knowing so there's two things I know that are going to get better in Battlefront 2. One of them is the big ship combat stuff, which those space battles were absolutely my favorite. There's nothing like that in the first Battlefront. There are a couple of levels where you can get in vehicles, and all the vehicles feel absolutely like dog shit, especially any of the ones that fly. It's real bad out there. So I know that Battlefront 2 at least makes flying vehicles feel fun, and so I'm looking forward to jumping in with those. And then the other one is that in Battlefront 1 there are hero units, but you don't get to play as them. You don't get to be Darth Vader or Maul or Luke Skywalker or anything like that. And that is something that gets added in Battlefront 2, which I remember really like changing the gameplay up, where it feels like, oh, I earned the ability to be a hero unit, and now I get to run around as Yoda and slice up dudes with a lightsaber and feel really, really cool. And then I can go back to shooting. And so those two big things I know are coming in the second game, which I hope holds up. I hope I get to that game and go, oh yeah, they just made sniping feel a whole lot better in this game, where they made the jetpack feel a whole lot better in this game. And it's possible they didn't, and maybe it's kind of just the same game with a couple of extra features on it, but we'll see. It's also interesting to me that the first Battlefront came out in 2004. Revenge of the Sith hadn't come out yet, so even though there is a Clone Wars campaign, it doesn't. It only goes up to movie 2. It doesn't finish it. So the Clone Wars campaign, I think, might just be a lot shorter than the Galactic Civil War campaign by virtue of the trilogy's not done yet, so we can't show all this other stuff yet.
You know what's kind of weird? We have not had any video game based on outside of mobile slop. Okay. There's not been any video games that have touched on the sequel trilogy since that's been.
There's some Lego games that have. Like
that's
like
true,
the complete saga one, but yes, you're in the way that like a Battlefront has.
Or even then, at the same time, they were doing like actual Revenge of the Sith was a fucking game,
right? Yeah,
like,
yeah. I mean, those movies are so poorly received, especially the last one. But it's been it's interesting. That's an interesting point. We've gotten a lot of Star Wars video games for sure. You just talked about one.
Yeah.
But I guess they've known we should clear out from that space. We should find our own stories. As I think that Star Wars and Disney themselves are figuring out is we need to tell different stories in the Star Wars universe. Absolutely. And that's what they have been doing. Some successful, some not so much.
Apparently, I haven't watched it yet, but Skeleton Crew is getting pretty good buzz from people.
That's the kid show one, right?
Yeah, like more kid friendly, kind of like Goonies or Stranger Things. It's got Jude Law in it. I think this one also takes place around the original trilogy, if I'm not mistaken, like shortly thereafter the original trilogy. But we're gonna get around to it. There's a few other things we're watching right now, but that's on the list.
Yeah. I still have a lot of Star Wars stuff to watch if I wanted to. I would like to rewatch Clone Wars at some point, the show Clone Wars, so I can listen to that podcast, A More Civilized Age. But then I also know like Rebels after that. I watched very little Rebels and didn't love what I watched, but I know that it turns into a much better show.
Did you watch Ahsoka?
I did watch Ahsoka. Yeah.
Weird. So you probably are. I mean.
Yeah, like I mean, I already knew a lot of that stuff.
Well, I'm just saying, but you don't have the reverence, though. I mean, like seeing some of those people probably has like nothing for you when you see them pop up.
Sure, but on the opposite end of like, this big mystery that's happening in Rebels, it's like I know, I just know, I already know what happens. It's fine. So someday we'll get through that. All right, Bobby, we're really done with Star Wars now.
Okay, can I tell you about another game?
Please, as long as it's not Star Wars.
It's not. Hyper Light Breaker came out yesterday, Chase. This is the sequel or spiritual successor, or I don't quite know yet.
It's sequel. It's called Hyper Light. You can't make a game called Hyper Light Drifter and then a game called Hyper Light Breaker and say they're not related.
At the time of this recording, if you are on PC, which is the only place to play this early access video game, they actually bundle Hyper Light Drifter with it for $27.
Nice.
So you get both those games. So this game, I will just kind of like, let's give you the listener and you Chase the partner here, kind of the lay of the land. This game came out to mixed reviews on Steam. It's been an interesting dialogue on like what people should expect for early access. I think that's an interesting conversation to begin with. But Heart Machine Games has been incredibly supportive and welcoming of the feedback. And they said, this is exactly what we needed to help build the game we want to build. And the feedback stuff has been more quality of life focused and some performance issues here and there. This game's hard. And I kind of forgot how hard Hyper Light Drifter was. I don't know if it scales up with other people or if I'm just playing this solo and really struggling. But I like so much of what this game's potential is right now. Like, I'm not going to tell you it's a bad game because I don't think that's it at all. I think I have a skill issue and I think the game is not balanced perfectly today. And they kind of talk about that in the feedback that they've received. But the general loop is that there is a city hub that you are unlocking shit in. And that is vendors, blacksmiths, etc. You have a really cool design. Like there's a lot of the juice from Solar Ash in this one compared to Hyper Light Drifter. You have a stamina wheel, kind of like Breath of the Wild looking, but it allows you to hoverboard and to dash up and to use the hoverboard as a glider when you're jumping off of ledges. And so the movement is really fucking slick. Like if you go into water, you drown, but you can hoverboard across water, which is really neat on how you can use your tools. It reminds me of a hybrid between Solar Ash, Remnant from the Ashes, and Risk of Rain is how I would explain what this game is. Really, Remnant strong is you're unlocking vendors back at your hub there, and you're kind of going out and doing some extraction style. So the initial pitch is there is a castle and a king, so to speak, in it, and he is surrounded by 3 crowns, and you are given 4 lives before you have to re-roll the world. And in those 4 lives, you're going out and you're getting items that you can either swap out, and there's rarity levels that you can do this. You've got like 5 slots that you can find pickups that give you stat boost, and it's usually an A or B choice. You do have a ranged weapon, and you have a melee weapon that you can swap out for your character. So you're out there collecting these things to get prisms to take out the crowns surrounding the castle. And that's the whole fucking shtick. So you're doing these PvE things, up to 3 people playing this, going out. There's multiple characters to unlock that you can tweak the build for. It's really fucking cool. Like, it's a fucking exceptionally cool video game with a ton of promise. Hard as shit right now. And I think the feedback I will say on this right now for me, if you die, which will happen often, the time from death to being back in the world is long. And it's long enough to let you sit there and think about, that sucked, that wasn't fun, that didn't feel fair, I don't want to do that again. I'd rather just pop up Star Wars right now. And that's kind of how I've been pushing myself, because I wanted to play enough to talk to you about it tonight. And I want to play it on Friday night on stream. And I would love to have somebody else play it with me so I can kind of gauge, does this have what it needs right now to be good? But I think that you would like what this game is doing. I really do. As much as you like Risk of Rain, this is harder, but it also does the same thing, Chase, where it has the timer beneath your, like, hey, they're going to make this harder if you don't hurry along on what you're doing. So you've got a little time element, and they'll also spawn in like a raid style attack. Like if you spend too much time without enemies, they'll send some your way too.
You know, it is tough when you're releasing a game in early access. Like you said, it's the expectations that some people have. It's really difficult for somebody to release an unfinished product, because I think the expectation for a lot of people is, if you put something out and you ask money for it, it should be basically done. And that's really unfair if you're treating early access the way that, you know, it was at least conceived to be, is we're going to build this game together. We're going to finish this game together. And it feels like these days we get more like early access is just kind of like an extended demo of the video game. Like, we might be able to tweak a thing or here or there, but like, we're giving you basically a finished product. And I think that's a shame that people continue to, you know, have expectations of something when clearly it's like the game's not done. This is our first day of early access. The game should be a little busted right now. But it's also the reason I stay away from early access stuff. Like, I'm sure that game
too.
Well, sure. But there's early access on other consoles these days. Not nearly as much, but those things do exist. But there is something of playing a game early, where I can understand the appeal of, like, I get to be a part of the game making process. I get to put in my opinions, and maybe they'll change the game to fit something that I said. Maybe I'll stumble upon something. But for me, I'm kind of just happy to wait, knowing that a better video game will eventually come out, and I'm good to wait for that. I've got other shit I can play right now. But I wish them the best. It's, you know, I thought Solar Ash was a really cool video game. I loved a lot of Hyperlight Drifter, and it'd be great if this came out and got fully finished and became one of the best games ever. That I would love nothing more.
I will tell you the article, one of the reviews I read, they called out, it was a review written around the response from Heart Machine, which I thought was interesting about the game. And they said, I don't typically like this genre of games, but I would like to be a part of what's happening with it, given the response and the care that this developer is bringing to it. I think that's exciting to me that people are kind of able to do that right now. And the game's not even, I think it's been out it came out at noon yesterday, and they've already got a response and a thanks out, and like, we are working quickly to fix this. So cool stuff happening in video games there. I'm looking forward to seeing more from that game.
Very cool. Just to keep us on time, I'm gonna probably not talk too much about Bayonetta 2, but I do want to at least mention that I started it. It's it was my wheel, my
backlog,
game,
right?
My backlog roulette wheel game of the month, and so far feels a lot like Bayonetta. The story's ridiculous. There are some very funny, cool, sexy, gross moments.
What year was Bayonetta 2 from?
God, I can't remember.
This is the newest one, right? Or is there a Bayonetta 3?
No, there is a Bayonetta 3. This was on the
This is not the Switch, right?
No, this is, well, I'm playing it on the Switch, but this was originally on the Wii.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it feels a lot like Bayonetta though, and I'm only a handful of chapters in. I think there's 19 chapters total, so I'll probably be back within the next couple weeks and have more like fully thought out ideas to talk to you about. But for now, it's Bayonetta, and you know,
all right,
it's pretty cool.
Very
what
cool.
I do want to talk about though is something else that I experienced, not played, just experienced. And that is the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie.
Did you go to the theaters to see this?
I did not.
Okay.
I watched a very bad bootleg. But I watched it.
And you call yourself a fan.
Yeah, I've got a big stack of Sonic the Hedgehog comic books that kind of proves my fandom. So I'm comfortable in that. But I did want to talk about it a little bit. You know, this the last video game movie I watched was
hang on 1 second. I have not seen Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Okay. I have seen Sonic the Hedgehog 1.
I have. I enjoy it. I have intention to see 2, and I was supposed to see 3, but sickness and weather happened in the Midwest. So I have 2 lined up to watch.
Okay.
So if you could not go super spoilery for me, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. I honestly don't remember a whole hell of a lot about 2 other than... I know
Tails is in it. I know that much.
Tails is in it. Knuckles is in it. Idris Elba's there. Like, yes, okay. I kind of wish they had just followed the video games and had Sonic 1... Well, had Sonic 1 be about Sonic, Sonic 2 be Tails, Sonic 3 be Knuckles, and then this could go into Shadow. But like the... Yeah, this is Shadow, which is not Sonic the Hedgehog 4. Thankfully, only one thing is. Well, technically 2 things are, and they're both bad. But yeah, this is taking Sonic Adventure 2, where Shadow came in, and they're telling that story, and it's they've changed the story for certain from where Shadow came from and the things that are going on, but a lot of it is relatively faithful, and I was kind of surprised at how faithful it was. It's fine. You've
seen the 3 of them, right?
I have seen the 3 of them. I just don't remember.
Will you rank them in order, 1 being the best?
I mean, 1 is probably the best, just because I feel like they had a lot of newness there, and were doing some interesting things. Again, I don't remember 2, but I feel like 2 is probably better. I don't know. 3 is probably better than 2. I don't know.
So 1, 3, 2. All right.
Yeah, I guess so. Which is interesting because if you talked about Sonic the Hedgehog video games, Sonic 2 is the best Sonic. That's just true.
And maybe you'll know this. This was never intended to be like a trilogy, ongoing thing, correct?
I'm almost positive it wasn't.
Well, I mean, the story of this is just still fucking insane to me. About the human Sonic, and now we're talking about the 3rd one that has Shadow in it. It's fucking crazy.
Well, I mean, the first Sonic movie did at least hint towards Tails being a thing. Like, that was a post-credit scene.
Tails was there, and then the beginning they show Knuckles race.
Yes, yeah. There are some echidnas in the beginning of Sonic 1. So they did at least like leave themselves room to be like, hey, if this is huge, we can definitely make a
We
second
can
one.
do it.
And then the shadow stuff with 3. Um I think maybe the most interesting thing about it is the post-credit scene here, but I don't necessarily want to spoil that for you.
This is it. Well, I don't know a lot about Sonic, okay, but I
Yeah.
know enough at that time period. So Knuckles came around. I know Shadow was like the black and red version of Sonic.
Yeah.
One of the
There were a
games on the
couple of different directions they could go with
there
this.
was a robotic Sonic I remember at this time.
There's many versions of a metal Sonic around in
Okay,
Sonic literature and
is
like
that
in
what
Sonic's
they
oeuvre.
tease?
Partially.
Okay, is Big the Cat teased?
No, unfortunately, no.
God
Big the
damn
Cat.
it! No cat, no sale.
I know, no Big the Cat. I mean, it's not a big deal. There are lots of Metal Sonics that you see in the post-credit scene, and that made me pop off because Metal Sonic is one of my favorite characters.
Wait, you said there's lots of Metal Sonics?
Yeah, which is so somebody who knows has put together all these Metal Sonics, and they were chasing Sonic. But then a hooded figure comes in with a giant hammer and destroys some of these Metal Sonics, which
Is that
should
Amy?
give. Yes, it's Amy. And she does like take off the cloak, and it's Amy. So that's probably the most Amy Rose has ever done in Sonic anything is the post-credits scene of the Sonic 3 movie. So who knows? Maybe they'll do right by Amy.
They haven't announced anything
cool,
like acting wise, like who would voice Amy. I don't believe.
I cannot remember if she actually was voiced. She might have said something like "Hey Sonic." I would have to look that up.
How do you think Keanu did as Shadow?
He's fine. You hear it. He opens his mouth, and you're like, "Well, that's Keanu Reeves. That's John Wick. Like that's not Shadow the Hedgehog." But my main problem with all of these movies is that there's lots of people who have already voiced Sonic and Tails and Knuckles and Shadow, and they do a great job. Why not just get those people? And the answer is because you want the star power.
You want the Chris Pratt.
Idris Elba sells tickets. Keanu Reeves sells tickets.
I
like those are big fun moments.
Like I've heard him talk in trailers. He did fine.
Yeah, I think they're totally serviceable roles. But
who's Tails?
That actually is like more of a voice actor person. Her name is Kathleen.
Is it the actual video game?
No. Okay. I'm not sure. I don't believe so. I don't believe it is. But everybody does fine. Jim Carrey does two roles here.
Are they different enough, or is it just the same thing? But
yeah, they're different. They're different.
Okay,
and he does good work with it. It's very silly. There are some solid references to old stuff. Like they go to a restaurant that is called the Chow Garden, and it's got all these Chow from like Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 that it's treated like a Japanese mascot cafe. And it's cool, it's fun. It's probably one of my favorite moments of the movie is just seeing hey, here's this dumb reference, but we really blew it out into this its own kind of thing. I thought that was fun. They play Live and Learn, which is the song from Sonic Adventure 2, which fucking rips. But they only play it for like a couple seconds before they go back into movie score, and you go, no, just play Live and Learn. Just let Live and Learn go. Like that's probably my main complaint with this movie and all the movies, honestly, is that Sonic the Hedgehog has so much great music and also so bad it's good music, and I think you should lean into it more. Like there's one scene in this movie where like somebody is just playing on an acoustic guitar like at a campfire, and you're hearing the notes and go like, oh, that's like a Sonic song. But it's just like a thing they do for like 2 seconds where like a fan like me can pick it up and go like, oh, that's from that game. But then it just goes back to normal movie score after that, or needle drop music, and you're like, we didn't need that. We didn't need We didn't need that stuff. You have so
you know
much
what we
great
did
music to
need?
pull from. What do
Like,
they need?
I love Jim Carrey. I'm a fucking 80s baby. 90s made me. I love Jim Carrey. But fucking Danny DeVito as Eggman. Just fucking chewing the scenery up. Fucking,
you're
God
not
damn it.
wrong.
I'm not wrong. He would have been fantastic as Robotnik.
Yeah. I mean, hey, Jim Carrey does good work, but yes, you're right.
He does a really good job.
There is like that kind of casting would have been amazing too. I will say, if you haven't watched
Ugly
it,
Sonic with fucking Danny DeVito Robotnik, you cowards.
there you go. The alternate cut they didn't want you to see.
Give me the DeVito cut and 4:3 ratio, you cowards.
But I will say, if you want to see, I'm sure everybody who's like a Sonic fan has probably already seen this. But if for some reason you haven't, I would strongly suggest people go check out the Sonic the Hedgehog OVA, the anime movie that came out like late 90s, early 2000s, I think. And that movie rules. Like,
Cool.
there's so many cool things, and also the villain is Metal Sonic, or in that they call it Hyper Metal Sonic. But it's fucking rad. That movie's great. People should watch that movie.
Nice, man.
This movie was fine though. Like, I think it's totally fine to go, watch with kids and have a good time, and it's fun. It's cool that Sonic is still out
Sonic's
there
back,
and
baby.
popular. And
Yeah.
I mean, in video game wise, he never left. He just, was levels of good and bad. But the movies, I think, have generally been good to inoffensive. And this one, I would say, is straddling that line somewhere.
Yeah. Just
Glad I watched it.
Yeah, totally. Anybody who's tuning in just now, tonight we covered a few things as we get near our little wish list rumor for the Switch 2 here. We talked about Star Wars Outlaws, which I've been enjoying. I've also checked out Hyperlight Breaker, the early access release from yesterday, the 14th. Chase talked about briefly Bayonetta 2, which was on his backlog roulette wheel spin from our monthly preview episode. And he is also currently playing a new YouTube series for Chase K Plays called Go Play a Star War. And he is on 2004's Star Wars Battlefront. He also saw Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Chase, Switch 2 Electric Boogaloo. It was supposed to be announced sooner rather than later, it seems. This whole thing's leaked. Like, we know what this is.
It's the worst kept secret.
It's the worst. Somebody even registered. I don't know if you saw, like, somebody had a photo of the Joy-Cons and the serial number was present, and they took the serial number to Nintendo's website and registered it, and it like worked. But yeah, so everything on the Switch 2 is out there except from Nintendo. So how much have you allowed yourself to read into this?
I would say very little. I know, like, the Joy-Cons have magnets in them, from what I hear, which seems like a smart call.
Bigger shoulder buttons. The magnet stuff looks really slick. And honestly, if the leaks for the design, so there was two when the Switch came out, the gray version and the neon red and blue. Mm-hmm. The Switch is like black or gray, but beneath the thumbstick and the lettering on the face buttons, and then when you take it off of the Switch and you hold the Joy-Con, the part that goes into it is the blue and the red. So it's really accented in a very cool way, but it looks like there's going to be a white version in that come out.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, my wish list isn't that long. It's mostly just one item, and that's don't fuck it up. Like, it's
well, dude, if it's what you want, which is if it's more Switch,
yes,
you're happy, correct? Yeah. And I think this is
obviously, I'd like it to be a little bit more powerful so it runs games better, and so developers don't feel the need to keep their games off Switch or have lengthier delays between when a game comes out on a PC or some other console and gets a Switch port. I'd like that architecture to be similar enough where people can more easily port things over, and powerful enough where they can have the confidence that something's going to run okay. Not that I'm necessarily.
I mean, that information's out there. Have you heard what it is?
Yeah, I mean, I hear that it's basically like a PS4. Right?
Pro,
like
PS4 Pro.
PS4 Pro? Okay, that's fine. Yeah, sure.
So I don't know, like, I don't know what that means. Like what I will tell you is that there's a few things that are rumored to hit it that I think will be huge for people who are on the ecosystem. Two of those games, one being Red Dead Redemption 2. Playing that on the Switch is kind of crazy to think about. The other thing is it's not only rumored for the Switch, it's also rumored for the PlayStation, but I think we're finally, and this is a whole other conversation, but Master Chief Collection is going to be coming day and date when it launches.
That would be fucking wild.
Well, I mean, like that pretty much is certain that Halo is coming to everything.
Yeah.
It's
even your televisions. It shouldn't have, but it was.
So yeah, I think that power wise, I'm with you. Like I want to have a game. I want a gaming system that feels current enough. And I think there's been some really cool indie things that probably were not quite able to go to the Switch without some bumps on it. And I think that an improvement on the back, like I want to see the back catalog stuff. They've already said it's going to be that way. The big thing for me is how are they improving those games, if at all, to run better? And am I going to have to pay for them more? That's what I want to know.
I mean, I'm sure if they were doing something like this, the leaks would have already caught it. But I would be a little bit disappointed if Nintendo just came out with a Switch 2 that was a slightly more powerful Switch. That would be the easy conservative thing to do. I want them to like still take a swing. Like even if it's a bad swing. I didn't like the 3D on the 3DS. And so for me the 3DS was just a more powerful DS, and that was perfectly fine to me, but there was something I still appreciated about, hey, we tried to make something work on this, and you know, if it works, great, and if it doesn't, hey, the worst thing you have is a more powerful DS. So I don't know what it is. I don't know what I'd call it. I don't know what I'd even want out of this thing, but I wish it was like it's a Switch, but also, and I don't think we're getting that, but I want Nintendo to stay weird and stay interesting.
I agree. There's two things that I'll call out there. One, there's I don't have my Joy-Cons up here right now.
You need a Joy-Con? I got a Joy-Con.
Yeah, can you get the right one?
Sure.
So for those of you,
it's spice orange, the best kind, the best color in video games.
For those of you listening, there is on the right Joy-Con, you've got the face buttons on the top, you've got the joystick or thumbstick in the middle, and then beneath that is the home button on the Switch. That's currently what you can use to get back to home or hold down to get power options. There's a new button beneath that one, Chase, on it, and it just says C. There's no other buttons around it. It's kind of a square shape. So none of us really know what that button's going to do. But the other thing that I find really fascinating is when you take the Joy-Con off. So when you're holding that up right now, there's the top part of it has the, like if you have it off and you're looking where the shoulder buttons are on it, there's like the green LED that shows you what's going on with it. There's a sensor in it now that it looks like it's going to be able to, like, you put the Joy-Con shoulder buttons down onto a surface and it can be used like a mouse.
Okay.
That's what they're theorizing.
All right. Yeah, so that could be a weird, funky thing.
Yeah. Like, I wonder if that's going to get into something with, I mean, would they allow you to take the other Joy-Con off, have your thumbstick nunchuck style from the Wii, and then I like to use a mouse and keyboard when I'm playing shooters. Could I use the Joy-Con on a surface and have somewhat of that? Or is it going to be for something where it's like Paint or a Mario Party, Mario Paint, for God's sake? That'd be wild to see them do with something like that. But
that would be neat. I mean, that would fulfill that kind of weird, funky thing that I'm looking for. Yeah, I mean, as thinking about the ways that you can play games on a regular Switch or the current Switch, like thinking about Splatoon and having, you know, yes, it would be very cool to have like a mouse mode that you can use to do kind of a mouse and keyboard style, but also then you'd be making 3 control schemes for Splatoon, right? Because you'd also be using the the gyroscope and then the controller mode. Uh, and that would be, I imagine that would be tough for developers to do all those things. Not that they'd
Totally.
have to, but yeah, that'd
The
be
the
interesting. Like as a
the
person who doesn't care about mouse controls, I wouldn't care, but
yeah.
that would be a weird, funky thing for somebody to try.
There's two first party IPs that have leaked a new 3D Mario and a new Mario Kart. And
Yeah, those things make sense. Like
they make sense.
they should make hey Nintendo, you should make a Mario and a Mario Kart. Do you think they know that?
I also wonder, because we didn't get this on the Switch, and I think this is the first time this has ever happened on a launch for that. Maybe I'm misremembering the GameCube, but there wasn't a pack-in game on the Switch, and we talked about that. We talked about like the best pack-in games at one of our episodes. I kind of feel like they need to do something like that. I don't know what it would be.
Do you not think they'll sell enough Switches if they
No,
don't?
no. I think that not from that at all. Even something stupid, just to like if they do add those weird quirks that you talked about, like give me something that like is kind of a watered down Astrobot or something, just to like.
Yeah, I mean they absolutely should have packed in 1-2 Switch with the
I
original
agree.
Switch. Like
I 100% agree.
because that's not a game that was really worth buying,
Correct.
but it's a game, to your point, that showed off the technology in
Yeah.
an interesting way, and
Yeah.
honestly in ways that almost no other Switch game did. When it comes to like the HD Rumble,
Yeah.
nobody has ever given a shit about HD Rumble outside of 1-2 Switch in my estimation.
No, sir.
So yeah, like having something in there that does take advantage of that, I think that's cool. Like even something like the 3DS had, you know, I don't think it had a packing game exactly, but it did like have the AR cards that you could mess around with and see some of the stuff in there. So yeah, I think if you did like a 1-2-3 Switch, if you want to call it that,
Absolutely.
pack that in, have something silly just to show off the technology.
Duck Hunt with the mouse.
Sure.
Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something?
That would be something. You're not wrong about that. It would certainly be something.
I think the Switch always did pretty good with battery life, but I hope that they can keep that same battery life with better graphics.
Right. Because that's always the tough part is,
totally,
you know, if you make this thing so much more powerful, and from what I have heard, it does sound like I know there's a little bit of this on the current Switch, but it sounds like it's going to be even more pronounced of when it's docked, it is even more powerful versus when it's in handheld mode.
That's a great thing you bring up. Not that we're a tech pod, but they're, you know, DLSS and Pisser now on PS5s, that they have for the like VSSR and all that shit to increase and like generative frame production. And you've heard this recently post CES where NVIDIA was talking about, hey, the new 5070 is just as powerful as the 4090 thanks to AI upscaling. And there's all kinds of shit that's happening with it. They're absolutely going to tap into like generative frames and stuff like that when docked to give you a better experience, which is awesome. Like I don't need this to be 4K on the go, but when I'm capturing video or streaming it here on the show, I have a 4K monitor. I want to play it in 4K here. I think that's completely fine. The other thing is it's going to be slightly bigger, and I'm not too worried about that. It also looks like you're going to get a little bit more ergonomics on the back side where there's more pronouncement for your shoulder buttons and triggers. So that's
probably a good call.
It should make it for a better, especially for you and I with these big paws. It'll be nice to have that.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think one of the reasons I have not played my Steam Deck more is that I just don't necessarily like the feel of it. It is too big in the hands. It's a monster.
The Ally X specifically, because they even changed the form factor on that one. That is like probably close to the specs of what this new Switch is from
that seems like it splits the difference in a way that is probably really nice.
It's great.
And as much as I like the promise of the Steam Deck, it's just a big thing. Whereas the Switch does, you know, it doesn't fit in a pocket, but it has a much lower profile. It is, you know, easier to hold in bed if you're trying to play games in bed. It's one of the reasons that I haven't played a whole lot of Steam Deck.
I I shit on the Switch a lot, and it's mostly out of frustration for Nintendo, but also like they've been so successful with this. And if you paid attention to anything in the last 2 years, especially CES 2025, it is hard not to see. It's weird, I should say, to see Nintendo's always had this ability to cut through console, but to see its influence in the PC market to the degree that we have, the Switch has changed so much for good that Nintendo is going to seemingly be playing it safe by shipping out a better version of that product. But it's not that different to me if you look at where Nintendo has had huge global success, which is their handhelds have not changed a lot over the years. And especially when you get into the DS period, I mean, that was a long run of building off of a good design. And the Switch is a great design. It's a fantastic thing. And it is the console that I think everybody has and should have. And the other nice thing is in a period where the PlayStation Portal and other things that you put on your face are skyrocketing in cost. If Nintendo can ship this at that like 400 rumored price point, I think that's a very, very good ROI for what you will get from something like a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, almost assuredly, because one thing I know about a Nintendo console, it's going to have Nintendo games on it, and Nintendo games generally pretty good. So software is always king with these things, and if they make some really good games with it, I'm gonna buy the thing, I'm gonna play the thing, I'm gonna love the thing. So we'll see.
Is it safe to say that since the Wii U, Mario Kart 8's been like the number one selling game across a lot of mediums for a bit now?
Oh yeah.
So
I think that's, outside of, your Robloxes and your
GTA.
Minecrafts and maybe GTA, like Mario Kart is absolutely dominating a lot of that.
You launch, as I led with, one of the most anticipated consoles of all time with Mario Kart, dude. It's going to be lights out.
It'd be big.
It'd be big. Big if true. All right, man.
When they announced the Switch, the original Switch, they also announced a new Fire Emblem. So they should do that again. They should do that.
A good one this time.
Man, that'd be nice.
Chase, I want to tease something. If you follow us on social and if you subscribe to the podcast, you might see some things that start looking a little bit different. And you and I have been busy behind the scenes for a bit now, scheming, planning, tinkering our way into 2025 as a podcast. Not to spend too much time on it, but we went through a significant change last year, and we didn't have a lot of time to really do much beside let me move, which was a big undertaking, and just keep moving forward to the best that we could. But we are trying to be a little bit more intentional about who we are, what we do, and how we move forward as the Casual Hour being a two-man operation. And with that comes new branding. And we have begun overhauling pretty much everything visually for the show. We have a few more logos to crack out, and then I have to come through and redo all of everything here on Twitch. And I'm hoping to get through most of that by the weekend, but we're going to make some formal announcements and do like, when I have everything done, we'll do the full rebrand here on stream. But folks on the Discord have been able to contribute and give us some feedback on it. And we've been working together on just kind of like, do you like this or that? What do you think? And Chase has been kind enough to come in and also write up some new biography stuff and description for us. And I couldn't be more thrilled. I'm feeling so fucking jazzed about where things are going and how it's kind of come together. And I'm very excited to share that with all of you who've been supporting us.
It is exciting stuff. I certainly liked our old / current branding, but I think Bobby's been doing some really cool stuff here with the design. And I'm looking forward to just kind of having a new attitude towards the Casual Hour, and part of that's going to come out in the branding that we make for it. So very exciting stuff.
And that also leads into we've been, like a lot of folks, having a hard time finding a good spot on social media. We actually did update that here, so you'll see all that accordingly. But we stopped posting on Twitter a while ago, and we are wrestling with where to post on the Meta platforms right now, given the recent changes. Or if. Yeah. And, Chase and I personally have moved predominantly to Blue Sky on this. And they did announce today that they're working on the video and photo, and that would really solve a gap that's left by some of the stuff on Meta for me. So I think it might be safe for us to say we're not going to be streaming to Instagram any longer. I don't think we had a lot of folks tune in there for our streams, but if I can stream 2 ways to our YouTube channel, I'm going to look into that, or maybe to Blue Sky at some point. But for the time being, we're going to post everything predominantly on Blue Sky. We're going to maintain our, at least on the show level, our accounts will be open on those other platforms, but we will not be posting, and there'll be links that take you to where we're active. So if you are listening to this and you liked what we were doing on social media, please follow us on at the casual hour .bluesky.social, and you can find that link right here. So this week, on top of the things we just outlined, I don't have the proper thing updated here. No, I did. We did Uncle Chops on Monday. We had a great time with that. Tonight was episode 407, and then on Friday I'm going to check out Hyperlight Breaker. Chase, you've been busy. Tell me about it.
Yeah, there's a new episode of Chase Koeneke Plays. As I mentioned earlier, I'm playing Star Wars Battlefront, the 2004 video game. It's a series called Go Play a Star Wars, and it's cool. been a lot of fun. Yeah, episode 2 came out today, so check that out. I did my ranking of the 9 Star Wars movies. So, what was
number 9?
Number 9.
Okay.
With a bullet.
I had to double check. I just had to double check and keep you honest here.
Yeah. No, I just ranked them in order. It goes 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. No, I very much did not do that.
Are you doing all theatrical release or just the Skywalker?
I did the 9 movies.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I mentioned Solo in there somewhere, but
I don't want to know. I'm going to go listen to it, but
yeah.
Could you just tell me if I said, hey, do 10 and include Rogue One, what number would Rogue One be?
Oh yeah, honestly, even in that recording, I didn't even think about Rogue One. Rogue One's good. I had a good time with Rogue One. I'd probably put that. It's somewhere in the middle, like somewhere solidly.
Yeah, I think mine would be. I think it would be pretty close to the original trilogy for me.
Yeah. Do you have original trilogy like top 3 spots easy?
Easy, no. From the original trilogy, if I was just ranking those, it would go like everybody, probably 2, 1, 3. Yeah. And then if I'm ranking only the prequels, it would go 3, 1, 2. And if I was ranking the sequels, it would go 7, 8, 9 as far as like best worst.
7, 8 DNF.
Yeah.
Did not finish the trilogy.
Yeah, did not finish. And I would probably put, if I was going to add Rogue One into that, I think I would probably go still with my same thing for the original trilogy. It'd be 2, 1, 3, and then I probably would do, depending on the day of the week, either Rogue One or Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, I think I've got a couple of surprises in my list, so
nice.
Definitely go check that out. It's fun, and yell at me about how wrong I am about some movie choices that I've made.
Yeah, it's cool. It's fucking rad that you're doing that, and I thank you for
looking forward to Battlefront 2. Hope it's better than Battlefront 1.
Is Battlefront 2 going to be blue or green?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
It might be blue. It might be blue.
Okay.
But yeah, this will be an ongoing series of lots of Star Wars games that I play. I'm not going to necessarily do them all consecutively, but I do think that once I finish Battlefront 1, I'll probably jump right into Battlefront 2, and then after that, maybe I'll go find something else before coming back to another Star Wars video game.
Nice.
But that's all on Chase Koeneke Plays. Go check that out. And then I have another podcast that I do with a good friend of our show called, Pierce Crocheting is what he's called. The name of that show is called Pilot Program, where we watch the first episodes of every television show ever made. We are recording our next episode next week. It will be on the 1985. Hang on, I can tell you. 1988 anime. Aim for the Top Gunbuster, which one of my favorites. Pierce is experiencing it for the first time. So that'll be a fun episode. And then we also, I'm not going to say it here, but we just figured out what our next episode is going to be on after Gunbuster's done, and I'm very excited about it. We're going to have a guest. It's going to be great. So go check all that stuff out. shows.acast.com/pilot program. See all or listen to all the other episodes that we've done in the past, and get ready for Gunbuster.
Awesome.